Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Hepp Huddle. Today we're going to talk about driving performance. This topic comes up every week, whether it's a one-on-one with a leader, a one-on-one with an owner, a group discussion. How do we make sure that our reps are making more money? Nobody's accepting the current status quo, the current dollar per rep. Everybody's ferociously focused on driving performance, and I love that. And I get it. I get the need for it. I mean, inflation has done its damage over the last couple of years. The cost of rent in every city, every city around the country, it's more money now to live, right? The cost of purchasing a home, the cost of a used car, the cost of gas, eggs, grocery tabs. Sorry to bum everybody out to start off, but we have to keep up with inflation and we have to surpass inflation. And the good news is we have. Our reps now make more money than they've ever made. We've got, more reps making six figures. There's a rep last year that pulled in over $200,000. So this stuff is getting on everybody's radar. Like, wow, it's possible. Any limiting beliefs we had last year have been smashed. Reps can make a ton, but what's important is the average rep. How do we make sure that the average rep in the office, from the top to the bottom, is making $1,000 or more per week? It's an important topic, important now more than ever. So that's really today's episode. I've really been focused on three things lately. This may change over time, but lately there's three areas, three buckets that I'm focused on that I'm going to share with you in today's episode. I'm sure you can guess what number one is. If you've been watching any of these Hepp Huddle videos, you know what I'm going to say. Number one, lead by example. All right. No surprise in that. And I think a lot of people try to, is there something else other than my example that's going to work? There is nothing more powerful than your example. People learn with their eyes. They don't learn with their ears. It's monkey see, monkey do. So you've got to do right. You've got to model the behaviors that you're looking for in your crew. Be the prototype, be the model of the ultimate rep that you want on your team. There's nothing more powerful than that. I like to call it the Michael Jordan School of Business. You're signing up for the MJ School of Business. Now, what do I mean by that? Everybody knows when MJ's on the floor, of course he's going to be a great example. Of course he's going to model a level of ferociousness and competitiveness, and he's going to score lots of points, all that stuff. But did you know that everybody's stats went up when MJ came back out of retirement? Did you know that everybody's free throw percentages improved? Everybody's cardiovascular improved. Hanes stock went up. More boxes of Wheaties were sold. Like everybody else's stats went up because MJ was present. So when you are leading by example, when you're the white rabbit in the office, right? If you want your reps to make $1,000 a week, you got to make $2,000. Just always look at it like, listen, the average rep is probably going to do half of what you do, so it starts with you. We could stop this video now. We don't need to get into number two, number three. There's nothing more important than number one. Two and three are a far distance from the most important element here. You got to lead by example. Think of how, the subcategories of modeling the behaviors. What time are you showing up? How are you dressing? What's your mindset? What are you listening to? What are you thinking about before you get to work? All of that is part of the package. Become the ultimate rep, and you're going to create a team of Navy SEALs. You're probably going to guess number two. I've been watching any of these videos. I'm a big fan of accountability. And high achievers crave accountability. Think about it. If you're a high achiever, you don't want to tolerate poor performance. You don't want to tolerate people slacking. You want accountability. You want people held to a high standard. So when I think accountability, work with me on this. I like to treat everybody like a Fortune 500 CEO. Now, how would a Fortune 500 CEO be treated? Listen, you're the boss, right? You make the call. But you are held accountable from a board of directors, right? They are holding the CEO accountable. What the CEO is doing is he or she is forecasting some grand numbers. Hey, here's what's going to happen, right? And then you're held accountable to those numbers. So I want people coming in. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to set your standard for you. Of course, there's a minimum standard in every office, but I find most people shoot above and beyond that minimum standard. Just you call the shot, and I'm going to hold you accountable to what you said you were going to do. Again, it's not like, well, I'm your boss, I'm telling you what you have to do, and I'm holding you accountable to what I say. No, you tell me. You call your shot. Again, we're attracting high performers. We're attracting people with ambition. So usually they're going to set, again, a really high standard. That's a call out there. They're setting high standards. You can even encourage and maybe set a little bit of a lower bar. Just make sure that you do what you said you're going to do. And if that requires you going extra miling, if that requires you working longer hours, whatever it takes, you're a Fortune 500 CEO. Again, treat people, train people like they're the boss, and eventually they'll become the boss, right? So you call your shot, and I want to record that, and I want to track that, and I want to hold you accountable, just like you can hold me accountable to the numbers that I'm calling out. I'm calling my shot. You're all welcome to hold me accountable. And if that's our culture of accountability and calling our shot, and applauding and praising each other for doing the things that we say we're going to do, having the integrity and the follow through, that's huge. That's an unbelievable winning culture right there. That's my number 2. And my number 3, and it might be a little controversial. You're probably not going to guess my number 3, but here goes. It's healthy turnover. All right. Now, what do I mean by healthy turnover? Every organization is going to have turnover. The question is, how many people turn over because they quit versus how many people turn over because they're terminated? Now think about it. If new people are in an office, right, and Bob is gone, well, how do you explain that Bob is gone? It's a lot easier to explain that Bob was terminated than it is to say that, well, Bob quit. There's something wrong with a company where everybody's quitting. So again, I'm okay with turnover. I just want to make sure that if I'm keeping tab of quits versus terminations, I'm not top heavy on the quits. I mean, I want turnover because people just don't make the cut. People aren't hitting the standard. And here's a way to look at it. I like using this comparison. Imagine this. Lakers training camp. Okay, so the Lakers have their training camp, and I show up on the court, and I'm like, hey, everybody, Vanilla Mamba's in the house. Here's Vanilla Mamba, and I got my Lakers practice jersey on, and I'm like, hey, listen, guys, I know you don't know who I am, but listen, I'm willing to work 20 hours a day, okay? Like, I'm going to give it everything. I'll travel all over the place. I'll do anything to be an LA Laker. Heck, I'm even willing to do it for free. Okay, you don't even have to give me a big contract. I just want to play with you guys. Now, what would happen if I did that? Okay, first of all, they'd call security. They'd say, somebody please remove this Vanilla Mamba character from our facility. They would say something, if it's polite, they'd say something like, Jamie, we appreciate your fanship. We appreciate your love for the LA Lakers. We know you want to be a part of the team. Just the team doesn't want you to be a part of it. You're not good enough to be a Laker. Okay, you're not fast enough. You can't jump high enough. You're not skilled enough. You're just not cut for this position. Okay, you're not made for this position, so we're sorry, you can't be a Laker. So again, high achievers, you want a high achieving culture? People want to be a part of an elite organization. They don't want to be a part of something where anybody can be a part of it. Oh, you've got a pulse? Congratulations, join the squad. Think of the best fraternities or sororities. I mean, you got to bring something special to the table to be in the cool kids club. So I want to create the cool kids club, and I want healthy turnover. Let's just do some quick math here to really drive home the point of healthy turnover. So let's say that there's 12 reps on the team that generated $1,200 in rep pay for the day. What's that dollar per rep for the day? Well, $1,200 divided by 12 reps equals $100 per rep per day. Is $100 acceptable? Most people would be like, nah, 100's not good enough. Well, if we looked at the roster, if we looked at the 12, well, let's just say that there's 2 reps that consistently just aren't producing. They're, let's say, the Vanilla Mambas. You want to be part of the organization, but does the organization want you in it? You're just not making the cut. And that might sound harsh for some, like, come on, you got to give everybody a chance. But again, we're trying to create an elite organization. Some just don't make the cut. So if we cut the bottom two, let's say that consistently are pulling in zero, okay, let's just say we still have $1,200 worth of production, but now we're dividing it by 10 reps instead of 12. Well, the new dollar per rep is now $120. We just increased our dollar per rep by 20% by cutting those bottom two. And again, if that sounds a little harsh, I want to give you a real world example from Jack Welch. Jack Welch was the CEO of General Electric back in its heyday. Okay, so GE was the largest company in the world in the 80s and 90s, and they were just kicking butt. They were doing really well, and everybody wanted to know, hey, what's the culture like at General Electric? And so Jack wrote a book called Winning, and here's the culture in winning. And so he had this philosophy. One of the many things, but one of the philosophies was he always wanted the bottom 10% of the organization to turn over. He certainly didn't want the top 10% to turn over, right? You don't want to lose the best and brightest. You want those people motivated. You want an elite organization. You just want the bottom 10% turning over. Now, again, some people might think that's too harsh, but Jack, the way Jack puts it, he says, well, listen, think of an organization that doesn't have any turnover. And the example he uses is the United States Postal Service. There's minimal turnover in that organization. And generally speaking, that company, okay, even though it's a government entity, it's ran at a loss. It's not profitable. It's dysfunctional. Most people complain about it. They run a monopoly. They can charge whatever they want for stamps, yet they still run at a loss. He says, well, it's because you got too many people that probably should be terminated that they're just not. They're sticking around. So you want that healthy turnover. Again, we want the best and brightest in the organization, and the best and brightest will notice. I remember one time I got called out, had this sharp new recruit that I'm giving him the song and dance. I'm working hard to recruit the guy, and he comes into my office around 2 weeks into it, and says, hey, Jamie, I think I want to quit and I want to talk to you about it. I'm like, oh, I'm all ears. I don't want you quitting. He says, I really bought in to, you're looking for owners. You're looking for people that can run companies. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. He says, yeah, well, I kind of feel lied to. I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, well, can you explain these two guys over here? And, I know this isn't what he said, but I'm thinking, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, okay, can you explain how these guys are in your organization? You're telling me they're going to be running offices? And I'm like, yeah, maybe they're not going to be running offices. So those guys kind of screwed up my pitch, if you will. Like, if I really was looking for owners, if I really was looking for the elite organization, well, then how come I'm giving those guys the spiel that there's an opportunity here when everybody knows that those guys just aren't going to make it? There needs to be healthy turnover. Now, I'm a big fan of people leaving as raving fans. I don't want to, shame anybody. Like, there is a way to properly terminate and, offer letters of recommendation and build people's confidence on the way out, for sure. I could run a whole episode on that. I don't want anybody leaving feeling like they wasted their time. That should never happen. But there should be, again, people leaving. There should be a certain amount of people leaving the business. They gave it their best. They came in, they tried it. I commend everybody for at least trying it. It takes guts to try selling. Any environment where there's, more no's than yeses, that takes some thick skin. It takes some cojones to do something like that. So again, I applaud everybody for trying, but just some aren't going to make the cut. So that's what I have for you. Again, those are my focuses with my driving performance. Again, nothing better than the Michael Jordan School of Leadership, accountability, and look for healthy turnover.